this is an area that's emerging for Pinot Noir. So, we're looking at a region that is changing before our very eyes in a way that's a little bit more exciting. We're going to have more and more red wines coming from this region because the climate is allowing those red grapes to ripen fully. And when you're interested in French red wine, but Burgundy's costing $100 a bottle or even more, could we be looking at a future where Alsace is kind of filling that void for us? It's totally possible. So there's a lot of good things happening here. And, for me, when it comes down to it, there's just great stories to tell because of all the different wineries. So many of them are family oriented. They all have these unique personalities to them. Some of my favorites, Domaine Weinbach, Barmes Boucher, Ostertag, Zindhumbrecht. These are great wineries. And so the more that you kind of pursue their wines and get a chance to I've not tried this one from them or this one, or you can kind of see how they handle the different vintages. It's the kind of place that you can really get excited about, I think.
Well, you mentioned red wine, and Pinot Noir is coming. And for me and a lot of folks, they may not have heard that news or knew that's very exciting because, to your point, the way they make wine, the quality of the wines that come from there now in the whites, we can only expect, or the bar is set pretty high, that the reds that they do produce and put on the market are probably, to your point, going to be pretty good as well.
Yeah. I mean, you think about that hurdle they have to make in the American market, just in our market. I'm not saying we're, I don't want to come across like we're the end all be all of fine wine. But for us, listening to this podcast as Americans looking for these wines in our market, you have to think, okay, for an importer to bring in a Pinot Noir from France that's going to sell well, it's going to have to be priced right. It's going to have a level of quality that meets the expectation of the consumer. And hopefully it's not going to be in a tall, skinny bottle that makes people think it's a sweet wine. So you're going to have to kind of find a way to fill that void. And so the wines that are going to pass that hurdle are going to be these really, great domains who have a legacy with white wines, who maybe even have a legacy with Pinot Noir. So we're going to see more and more of those, I think. And I think we ought to pay attention to them because, it's a grape that everybody, expects to be one of the greatest in the world. And maybe it's not the wines from Alsace. I don't know if they can contend with Grand Cru Burgundy or maybe, they probably won't have the same richness that maybe you would expect from Sonoma or from the Willamette Valley, but they have their own type of thing to say about Pinot Noir that I think is worth listening to.
So are they making Pinot Noir now in the region, and they just, consume it locally as
Yeah, I don't know if it's got a history of being of local consumption, but it's certainly something that they're increasing the plantings for.
Okay.
Within the last 2 years, even, they went ahead and allowed 2 of the Grand Cru vineyards in Alsace to be sanctioned for Pinot Noir. So you can now get 2 different expressions of Grand Cru Pinot Noir from Alsace. So, just a real quick primer. The Alsace has Grand Cru level vineyards. They don't have a Premier Cru, but they have these 51 vineyards that are acknowledged for their unique terroir, which I'll get into in a little bit because there's so much to say about rocks and geology if we really get into it. But these are really special, unique sites. And 2 of them, one is Kirchberg de Bar and the other is the Hengst Grand Cru, have a legacy of Pinot Noir plantings that has proven enough of a track record that they felt okay sanctioning the bottling of Grand Cru vineyard, Grand Cru Pinot Noir. One of them, Hengst, was a vineyard that I've walked through with Alberman, the Domaine Alberman, Maurice from Domaine Alberman, who's really probably the top Pinot Noir producer in Alsace. Really made a name for himself, and it's probably a big reason why Pinot Noir from Alsace is gaining traction, is because of some of the good work done by some specific domains, and Alberman is one of them. And when we walk through the Grand Cru Hengst, it's got the nice sun exposure. So that far north in France, you really need optimal sunlight. It has that. While we're walking around, there was a baby deer that was taking a nap in the vineyard.
Wow.
It was filled with poppies growing everywhere, tall grasses. I mean, it's a Garden of Eden type of Grand Cru vineyard. Beautiful place. And I've not seen a vineyard that looks like that in Burgundy. I mean, I love Burgundy, don't get me wrong, but it was a fascinating world to step into. And at that time, this was in 2018 that I walked through this vineyard with him. It wasn't allowed to call that Pinot Noir a Grand Cru Hengst. So, those names are changing a little bit, but it's certainly something to pay attention to. So, yeah, Pinot Noir it's interesting. I do think, there's some work to be done. I've had some examples of Pinot Noir, recently from the Millésimes de Alsace event that they host, which, I think they're coming from younger plantings, so they're not nearly as complex as maybe what we're hoping for. But I think there's tremendous potential there.
That's awesome. That's exciting news. So I don't know how long
Yeah.
before they hit the market here in the States, but when they do, I'm looking forward to trying a few of those for sure.